Hey guys, Steve here, and last time we completed a run of Pokemon Blue with only a Bellsprout. Today's video will be much more special. We're going to pit two very similar Pokemon against one another to see which one will come out on top. These Pokemon being Dewgong and Vaporeon. These two Pokemon are extraordinary, and it took me a while to get you a good matchup. Believe it or not, I was thinking of either Golduck or Seadra, but these starting movesets wouldn't have been good enough to make it this tight of a race. Let's take a look at the stats on these Pokemon to get a good idea on what to expect during this run. Both of them bolstering a pretty decent HP stat, so they'll be able to take a lot of hits before going down. Neither of them have very great attack or defense stats. Dewgong with slightly more of both, but that's okay because the primary attacking moves we'll be using will be special anyways. Speaking of special, both of them have tremendous special stats, and that with their high HP means that our usual scariest matchup in Alakazam won't be nearly as bad. But obviously moves like Surf and Blizzard will be immensely powerful combined with special like this. Last is speed, and as we figured out in the Lapras front, 60 to 75 is probably the sweet spot, where you're just fast enough to outspeed 95% of the game. As for weaknesses, Dewgong has 4 of them: Electric, Grass, Fighting, and Rock, whereas Vaporeon only has 2, Electric and Grass. It's an interesting trade-off because the pure water type has the advantage here with less weaknesses, but then again, the ice typing gives Aurora Beam, Ice Beam, and Blizzard a massive boost, which could be the reason why Dewgong could win. Last is of course the moveset. Dewgong gets Aurora Beam and Headbutt from the start, which has to be a massive advantage, while Vaporeon gets Water Gun and Quick Attack. Obviously quite a big difference between those two starting movesets. But for the TMs, things are basically the same. We're going to use Body Slam, Blizzard, and Surf most likely for both of them, but that last spot seems very open. Dewgong learns Rest while Vaporeon gets Acid Armor. Those seem like very good moves I'll probably be using, unless of course Mimic seems more valuable. I guess we'll just have to see. But it's looking like we'll probably get the answer to a pretty cool question. What's better, Badge Boost or Recovery? Take your guesses in the comment section below. The rules are going to be the same as they always are. They will be located in the description section of this video, or pause the screen if you'd like to see them. All 3 Easter eggs were located in the last video. This video will have 5. Here are the comments that found Easter eggs from the last video. Please try and guess in the comment section which Pokemon you think will win and by how much. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to stay up to date on future videos. If you want to help this channel grow, please comment Water Puppies for the YouTube algorithm. With all of that said, let's begin with our playful sea lion, Dewgong. Now, from the gameplay you can probably already tell that something is a little different. I had a conversation with one of my favorite YouTubers, Gym Leader Matt, and he let me know about a patch that you can do for Gen 1 that allows it to look like Gen 2. And I figured I would like the game to be a little bit more fresh and have my videos stand out a little bit more among the majority of the Pokemon YouTubers. Don't worry, if you do like the Gen 1 aesthetic, I'm only going to be doing this for the Versus videos. First off, we're going to start the game by grabbing our level 5 Dewgong and replacing Squirtle with the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to make sure that Champ has a Venusaur. I give it the nickname Water Dog because it's a playful dog-like Pokemon. I know the Venusaur line is weak to ice moves and all, but we do resist water and ice moves for Blastoise, and Charizard only does neutral damage, so quite frankly there is no starter that is considered a good choice. But at least with Venusaur we could in theory be taken out by an early game Bind Whip or a late game critical hit Razor Leaf. I'm gonna go ahead and move along because we have a lot of gameplay to go through. I'm going to battle Rival 1A because, well, quite frankly, Pidgey and Bulbasaur are weak to ice moves, so I think our level 5 Dewgong will be up for the challenge. It turns out Rival 1A's Pokemon, even though they have a pretty big level gap on us, are actually not too bad to take out because we have weaknesses that we can exploit for an easy win. Up next is Brock, and I'm expecting a very easy win. His Pokemon aren't double weak like they are to water moves, but Aurora Beam is still a super effective move. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at just how well Vaporeon is going to do at the start of the game. We're once again going to start the game by grabbing our level 5 Vaporeon and replacing Squirtle with the Universal Pokemon Randomizer to make sure that Champ has a Venusaur. I give it the nickname Water Dog because Eevee is considered the dog line. Vaporeon is clearly the water version of the dog. I considered Ocean Dog. But I didn't really think the game had an ocean, more of a large lake. For the champ battle, this one is actually going to be a little bit more difficult. We've got quite a few more moves that we can pick from. I go ahead and move Water Gun to the first slot because it's obviously going to be our best move because of our special, and this is more of a slow and steady wins the race kind of deal. Even though Water Gun is going to be resisted, it's still our strongest move. Unfortunately, Vaporeon doesn't have a super effective move against Champ 1A, so we would just be taken out by Bulbasaur's Leech Seed very slowly, so we're actually going to go ahead and skip him and go right to Brock. But as you can imagine, any Pokemon that has Water Gun makes Brock extremely trivial. None of his Pokemon even survive a single hit whatsoever. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the first standings here. It appears that Vaporeon has taken an early lead, and this is mostly because Dewgong has battled Rival 1A, whereas Vaporeon didn't, so Vaporeon got to go right to Brock. But it's still anyone's game from here. Next, we're going to work our way through Mount Moon, in which we heard a strange sound. I made my way towards this sound. It's coming from the Helix fossil. It's saying, "Please like, subscribe, and comment water puppies." It sounds like sound logic, but I need to make my way towards Misty. The reason for picking Misty is that Misty is only going to use normal moves. Because we resist water moves, she's going to purposely choose not to use them. Our defenses are just good enough where we should be able to survive the tackles no problem. But that's just a theory. Let's go ahead and see how it plays out. Now, my strategy for this battle is going to be a little bit unorthodox. I'm actually going to utilize the Sand Attack move. I'm going to go ahead and start out with 2 Sand Attacks, and then just use Quick Attack, and nothing but Quick Attack. The theory here is hopefully that Staryu will miss enough moves that our Quick Attacks will just go unanswered. Things went actually according to plan as Staryu ended up missing 3 tackles. So, we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing on Starmie and hope that the same thing happens. This then proceeds to be a great plan as Starmie then ends up missing 7 tackles, allowing our Water Guns to hit for 5 damage apiece, which we switched to Water Gun mid-battle because Quick Attack was doing less damage because of X Defend. With Misty taken care of, we can go ahead and take on Champ 2. Champ 2 is going to start out with a Pidgeotto as usual, and we're going to move Bubble Beam to our first attack slot. Then, Bubble Beam does massive damage as Pidgeotto is then able to land a Quick Attack before going down. Abra is obviously Abra, so we're just going to go ahead and take it out with some Quick Attacks, but unfortunately that Sand Attack really does a number on us as we miss a few times. For Rattata, I then use Quick Attack, and even with a critical hit, it still doesn't manage to take it out. So, I continue spamming Quick Attack until one finally hits. For Bulbasaur, I'm deathly afraid of Vine Whip and Leech Seed, so I'm going to go ahead and spam 4 Sand Attacks to make for darn sure that Bulbasaur isn't going to land a hit on us. Unfortunately, the Leech Seed hits us, and then we're forced to take damage over and over every turn, as the 1 Sand Attack that hit us manages to be much more effective than the 4 Sand Attacks I used on him. On the next attempt, I switch to 2 Sand Attacks instead, and then I switch over to Bubble Beam, as Bubble Beam I think is going to end up doing more damage than Quick Attack. The Bubble Beam ends up doing 16 damage, whereas the next attack then uses Quick Attack and ends up being a crit, and the crit still only does 19 damage. So I think that decision actually was the better decision. From there, we can go ahead and just work our way to Champ 3 as usual. I don't know if you expected much from this battle, but we battled everybody on Nugget Bridge, everybody to the left of Bill's house, everybody on the way to Vermilion City, the guy that's blocking Body Slam, the guy who's blocking the rare candy, we taught Body Slam, so we're essentially fully set up for this game, and it wasn't even close. Now, the decision to battle Surge or not was a difficult one, because we do have a weakness to electric moves. But the thing is, we have a ridiculously high special stat, so I was hoping that if we get hit by a Thunderbolt, we'll be able to survive the hit quite well. But you never know until we find out. Surge starts off with his usual Voltorb, and we go ahead and try out a Bubble Beam, which ends up KOing it, which means that Pikachu should go down too. But now, Raichu is out next, and it hits us with a Thunderbolt. And it does about half. Following Thundershock doesn't do much, but does paralyze us, as the next Thunderbolt does a decent amount of damage as well, and then the following Bubble Beam gets us the victory. It was quite a bit closer than I expected, but 2 Thunderbolts definitely would have taken care of us, or a critical hit Thunderbolt, so battling him that early was kind of a mistake, but we got away with it anyways. Up to this point, it's been very clear that Vaporeon is quite the special tank, kinda like Alakazam. where it can dish out special damage quite well and it's able to take special damage quite well. With this information in mind, when I arrive in Celadon City to purchase vitamins, I make sure to purchase some extra calcium. I want to make sure that when we get a chance to KO, we do KO. With our newly obtained Bubble Beam and Ether from Bill's house, I then decide to take on all of Erica's trainers to make sure that I get some extra levels before taking on Erica, so that way I one-shot all of her Pokemon. Erica then starts out with her usual Victory Bell, and we go ahead and use Ice Beam, which almost knocks it out, but putting it in Super Potion range. So then Tangela is then taken out with an Ice Beam, and Vileplume is then taken out with an Ice Beam. So we were close to the one-shot sweep. Now that Erica's been taken care of, let's go ahead and check back in on Dewgong to see how it's going. It looks like we left it right back after it defeated Brock. So let's go ahead and check back in as I decide to face Misty next. She starts off with Staryu as usual, and we start with a Growl, which will reduce her attacking damage. Then I switch over to Headbutt. I didn't expect her to use an X-Defend, but it appears we're doing pretty decent damage anyways. For Starmie, I go ahead and start off with another Growl and continue using Headbutt. Unfortunately for me, Starmie is a crit machine and just crits me twice in a row to take me out. On the next attempt, I accidentally click down one too many times and use a water gun. I start with Growl, then continue with Headbutt. This time, Starmie doesn't crit nearly as often, and I do just enough damage to whittle her down, but quite slowly until we get the win. Now for Dewgong, Champ 2 should be much easier, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Champ 2 then starts out with Pidgeotto, and I use an Aurora Beam, which of course one-shots it. Then for Abra, I go ahead and use Headbutt, which one-shots it. Then for Rattata, it's a 2-shot, followed by Bulbasaur, which is then one-shot. Quite a lot easier than it was for Vaporeon. Champ 3 I don't expect a challenge for the same reasons it wasn't a challenge for Vaporeon. So he starts out with Pidgeotto as usual. I take it out with an Aurora Beam, followed by Raticate, which is not taken out by a Body Slam. In hindsight, probably should have used Aurora Beam. But anyways, Kadabra, then taken out with a Body Slam, followed by Ivysaur, which is taken out with an Aurora Beam. Dewgong's inclusion of an ice move in its starting moveset is truly making it a speed demon in this game. For Surge, he starts out with Voltorb, in which we decide to use Aurora Beam, but unlike Vaporeon, our special stat isn't high enough where Aurora Beam can one-shot it. Now Pikachu, however, we just switch over to Body Slam and one-shot that, followed by Raichu, which is then able to do pretty decent damage with 2 Thunder Shocks as we paralyze it and take it down on the next hit. It appears that Surge is much more difficult for Dewgong than I originally anticipated. That probably could have taken us out with a Thunderbolt. And on the next attempt, I'm not really sure if we should battle Surge first. Now in these solo runs, I have to make a decision on if I want to go to Erica or if I want to go shopping first. And since we don't need Ice Beam, I decide to go to Erica next. Now you're probably wondering, why do you even need to make that decision? It seems simple, just go ahead and go to the Pokemart first every time. Well, the thing is, if I go to Erica first, I can get the money for defeating either all of her trainers or just her and the Execute trainer, and in this case, I decided that since I have Aurora Beam, I might as well go to Erica next. I actually also decided to skip the trainers, unlike Vaporeon, because I actually think that the Ice typing will allow me to get through the Elite Four a little bit easier, since I'll be able to have an extra powered Blizzard thanks to Stab. She then starts off with Victory Bell as usual, and I go for Aurora Beam, which doesn't take it out. That's not what I expected. But luckily she just misses the Sleep Powder, and then we finish it off. Then for Tangela, we do finish it off, but I don't know if that crit mattered. And Vileplume, again, isn't a one-shot, but luckily the next attack then finishes it off. Now that both competitors have made it past Erica, let's go ahead and take a look at just how the standings are. Now it appears that nothing changed for Misty. However, when we got to Champ 2, Vaporeon ran into issues with Bulbasaur, and that caused it to lose a bit of its lead. Then, when we got to Surge, Dewgong was able to pull out just a little bit more ahead thanks to its sheer amount of move PP and type effectiveness against grass and flying types. Then, as we arrived at Erica, as you can see, Dewgong pulls even further ahead. Some of this is due to the training that we skipped, and some of this is due to the fact that we didn't already go to the Mart. Also, keep in mind that Dewgong is a lower level than Vaporeon. Also, make your guesses in the comment section below if Dewgong's going to be able to maintain its lead or if it's going to blow the lead somewhere else in the game. Now, continuing back with the run, we're going to go ahead and pick up 4 Carbos from the Celadon Mart to make sure that we can speed up our slow Dewgong. Once that's been done, we can head over to Pokemon Tower to fight Champ 4. As the Champ 4 battle begins, I'm just now realizing that I actually forgot to teach Ice Beam right away. But it doesn't appear to actually be mattering because we're just able to mow right through his team with about 1 to 2 moves on every single Pokemon. After he's been defeated, we spend the next 6 minutes going through the rest of Pokemon Tower, Cycling Road, the Safari Zone, and then arriving at Koga. Koga then starts with his usual coughing. Unfortunately, we don't have a move that is super effective against his poison types, so I just have to go with Ice Beam. And then a Headbutt to finish it off. Then, for Muck, we go ahead and use an Ice Beam, but it does a little bit less than half as he only uses an X attack and our next Ice Beam leaves it on a sliver, as the next Sludge then hits us for massive damage before we then finish it off with a Headbutt. At this point, the writing's on the wall. We're going to be taken out by Smog, Sludge, Poison damage, a Self-Destruct. Somehow, someway, Koga manages to screw this up and we win. From there, we then head over to Silphco to fight Champ 5 next. He then leads off with his usual Pidgeot, as Ice Beam is able to take care of it with no issues whatsoever. Gyarados, we don't have a super effective move, so we're just gonna have to stick with Ice Beam. Luckily, he doesn't use more than 1 Dragon Rage and we get through without issue. Then, Growlithe goes down to a single Surf. This takes us to the Alakazam, where he uses a Confusion that does massive damage thanks to a crit, but luckily, he's only using Disable and Recover. So we get an unlikely win on Alakazam. Then for Venusaur, Ice Beam doesn't manage to one-shot, but luckily he only uses a Leech Seed and we're able to get the win with the next attack. We got really lucky on that battle. I mean, both Vine Whip and Razor Leaf would have taken us out. We then find ourselves heading toward Blaine next, and Blaine should obviously be an easy battle. Blaine then starts off with a Growlithe, which promptly gets taken down with a Surf, followed by Ponyta, who then gets taken down to a Surf. Then Rapidash, which is another Surf, and Arcanine, who then survives a Surf, but he only uses an Ember, so it's not a big deal. Now with Blaine's badge in hand, all the training that we did in his gym, and the 12.5% boost to our special, I think it's time to finally take on Sabrina. There's no way we can put it off any further. Sabrina then starts off with her usual Kadabra, and we use a Body Slam, which takes it out in 1 hit, which allows us to learn our signature move, Rest. I then teach it over Headbutt, and we move on to Mr. Mime, who I then paralyze on the first hit of Body Slam and take it out on the next. Then, for Venomoth, I use another Body Slam. It unfortunately then gets a chance to use a Stun Spore on me, but luckily we weren't going to outspeed Alakazam anyways. Then, for Alakazam, he then sets up with a Reflect, allowing our Body Slam not to do much damage. But then our following Body Slam gets a crit and ignores his buff, allowing us to get the victory. Only 1 gym leader left, and it's the easiest one. Giovanni should be no problem whatsoever. Giovanni then starts off with Rhyhorn, who promptly goes down to a Surf. Then, for Dugtrio, we then use another Surf to take it out, followed by Nidoqueen, who we then switch over to Blizzard because our moveset says it's going to do significantly more damage, and it does take out both Nidoqueen and Nidoking. Then, obviously, Rhydon goes down to the next Surf. With all badges in hand, there's only 1 more challenge left, Champ 6, before we then switch over to Vaporeon. Champ then starts out with his usual Pidgeot, and we go ahead and take it out with a Blizzard. Up next is Rhyhorn, which we then take out with a Surf, followed by Gyarados, which we don't have a good move for, so we're just going to have to take it out with a few Blizzards. Then, for Growlithe, we use another Surf. Then, it's Alakazam, who then starts off with a Reflect, causing our Body Slams to do very little damage. But then, the unthinkable happens. He gets 4 fully paralyzed before going down. Venusaur is next, and we take it out with a Blizzard. Now, I have no idea if that crit mattered. In our last battle with Champ, our Ice Beam wasn't able to take it out either. Anyways, we had just left Vaporeon around the time it had defeated Erica, and now we're heading over to Champ 4. Champ 4 then starts off with his usual Pidgeotto, and we just take it down with an Ice Beam. Then, for Gyarados, there's obviously still no good move to use, but Ice Beam does quite a bit more than half, so that's good enough. Then, for Growlithe, we're just going to go ahead and use a Bubble Beam. And for Kadabra, a Body Slam. Or, I guess an Ice Beam, because I ran out of Body Slam. And then I have one Ice Beam left for Ivysaur, and that's all we need. Then we work our way over to Koga, the same way we did with Dewgong. However, with Vaporeon, our special stat is just so high that we can brute force our way through Koga's Pokemon without really any issues whatsoever. In fact, we don't even take any damage from any of his Pokemon all the way up until Weezing, where we get a chance to see just how good its HP stat is by surviving a self-destruct. Now, hindsight is 20/20, and thanks to doing Vaporeon second, I did learn that it was much easier to go through Blaine first. So I'm going to go ahead and take on Blaine next, instead of Champ 5. Now, while I was doing training in Blaine Gym, I did learn Acid Armor, our first and only badge boosting move of the run. So, as you can see, all of our stats have been boosted quite a bit, and the rest of Blaine's team is going to go down in one hit apiece. I didn't actually need badge boost because, you know, it's Blaine, but it did help me outspeed Arcanine, so there is that. After teaching Blizzard over Ice Beam, our final moveset has been realized, and we can go into Champ 5 with the confidence that our moveset is going to be tremendous. As he sends out his Pidgeot, we go ahead and use our first Blizzard, which obviously then takes out Pidgeot. Then, for Gyarados, we use our next Blizzard, which does, in fact, do more than half, which is our main goal here. Then, we attempt to learn Haze, and I decide not to. Then, for Growlithe, it's a Surf. He then throws out Alakazam next, and unfortunately, it's not a one-shot. Then, for Venusaur, we use our last Blizzard and take care of it. With Champ 5 taken care of, we can then blast our way through the rest of the gyms. Sabrina is next, and I'm actually a little bit worried, because Dewgong does have a higher attack stat than Vaporeon, so Body Slam's not going to do nearly as much damage as it did for Dewgong. Sabrina then starts off with her usual Kadabra, and we take it out with a Body Slam. This then levels us up and allows me to then use Acid Armor to increase all of my stats further and hopefully be able to one-shot the rest of his Pokemon. Unfortunately, I'm still not able to one-shot the Mr. Mime, but that's okay, because Double Slap doesn't really do that much damage. Then for Venomoth, we take it out with a Surf, and now we're going to outspeed and take out Alakazam. Unless I get a crit, but that's okay, the next attack then finishes it off. Well, we're going to go ahead and make our way over to Giovanni, but it's not going to be much of a challenge, just like it wasn't for Dewgong. Out first is Rhyhorn, which easily gets taken out by a Surf, followed by the Dugtrio, which gets to attack first and taken out with a Surf. Then the Nidoqueen, who gets taken out by a Surf. We level up and decide not to learn Mist, then take out Nidoking with a Surf, followed by the final Rhydon with a Surf. This then takes us to Champ 6, the final destination before we then compare our results with Dewgong. Champ 6 then starts out with a Pidgeot, which we promptly take down with a Blizzard. Then, Rhyhorn is obviously an easy Surf. Then for Gyarados, we go ahead and use a Blizzard, and it does a little bit less than half, which is a bit of a bummer. But it only has Dragon Rage and Hydro Pump at this point, so it's not a big deal. And because we recently leveled up, we can go ahead and start using Acid Armor to go ahead and set up for the following Alakazam and Venusaur. Then we take down Growlithe with a Surf. Then for Alakazam, we take it out with a Body Slam. It unfortunately survives and hits us with a Psychic and gets us a special drop before we go into Venusaur. We then use a Blizzard on Venusaur and miss, as the Razor Leaf does massive damage, followed by another Blizzard miss, and we get taken out. On the next attempt, we can get by Alakazam without taking a special drop this time. And then, for Venusaur, we just use a Blizzard and it takes it out in one hit. With that win, we can finally go ahead and compare Dewgong and Vaporeon up to this point and see how the run is going. It's pretty clear from these stats that after Dewgong was able to beat Erica, we did in fact go to the Celadon Mart and go shopping. So Vaporeon was able to gain a little bit of its time back. But the big difference between Gym 5 and Gym 6 is that Dewgong ended up battling Sabrina, whereas Vaporeon had battled Blaine. Therefore, when Dewgong lost a whole bunch of time there, it was because of the Silph Code mission. Then you can see that Vaporeon immediately loses that time as we meet up again at Giovanni. Then at Champ 6, we end up losing another 20 seconds because of that reset on Venusaur. Also, after reviewing the footage, I had realized that Vaporeon actually battled a lot of the hikers in Rock Tunnel, which cost it a lot of extra time as well. All of those trainers Dewgong skipped. Anyways, we're going to be switching back to Dewgong and see how the Elite Four goes for both our competitors. Lorelei then starts off with her own Dewgong, and unfortunately for me, this Dewgong can really take a hit. Of course, it obviously also has a high HP stat and a pretty decent defense stat. Our body slams are just doing next to nothing, and because it can survive 2 body slams, it can easily just revive itself with rest every single time and waste all of my PP. Not to mention, it can use a growl every once in a while and lower my attack stat even further. Eventually, I even have to switch over to Blizzard, which obviously does next to nothing. I really should have known that it quad resists Blizzard. For some reason, I get this point where it doesn't use rest and I'm able to take it out with a Surf. Then, for Cloyster, I have no choice but to use a Surf. Cloyster has such high defenses that it's just not going to be feasible using any other move. Luckily, she doesn't use a super potion or anything, we're able to take it out. Slowbro is next, and I take this opportunity to rest up and heal all of the damage that we've been taking. Unfortunately for me, Slowbro ends up using this time to increase its special and its defense, so none of my moves are going to be very effective. For some reason, I was using Body Slam and I have no idea why. Then I switch over to a Surf, which thanks to a crit does massive damage, but all these non-crit Surfs are just doing next to nothing. Thankfully, our crit rate kicks in and we get another crit to take it down. Normally, I would take advantage of Jinx's very low defense, but unfortunately for us, body slams are out of PP, so we switch over to Surf and take it down after a few attacks. Now, unfortunately for me, I have no body slams. I have a few Surfs and a few Blizzards, and I know Lapras quad resist Blizzard, so really there is no other plan other than hoping for some crits. So I already preemptively try and use up all of my rests, but unfortunately for me, Lapras is able to then start using Confuse Ray, so once I start waking up from rest, I start hitting myself, and unfortunately, that combined with Lapras getting a handful of pretty lucky crits takes me out. On the next attempt, we make it right back to Lapras, but unfortunately I have even less PP than last time. I've got a few more body slams, but it's just not looking good, and I have to resort back to using our rest strategy, which is obviously not a good sign, and the clock is really ticking. We've been losing loads of time here on Lorelei. In fact, we've given up so much time that Vaporeon might even come back. After a bit of lucky damage from Body Slam, we get Lapras down to a decent amount of HP, but now we have to use off the remaining Blizzards and hopefully get a crit. Unfortunately for us, we seem to be taking loads of damage from all of Lapras' Body Slams, so now we're forced to use a rest, and we get our last Blizzard off and it does next to nothing, and now we have literally no other move other than rest. So I'm going to go ahead and use up all of these rests. I probably know that the inevitable is coming, but there's nothing I can really do about it. I'm going to go ahead and speed up some of the footage here, so that way you don't have to endure all of these rests. After all of these rests have been used, we unfortunately get crit right there at the end, causing us not to have very much HP. In fact, we have just enough HP to get the win, but unfortunately we take ourselves out, and that's not a win in a solo challenge. I was so discouraged by this 2 very long losses that I just decided to use all 10 of my rare candies. It really didn't seem like this battle was shaping up to look very good, so I decided that screw it, if I'm gonna win this battle, I'm gonna need to be the maximum level that I can be. Luckily, we're finally starting to do some decent damage. I don't know if we'll have enough PP by the end, but it's looking a lot better now. For Slowbro, it looks like we can actually 3-shot it. Thanks to Amnesia though, it's going to be a 4-shot, but you know, that's a lot better than it was before. For Jinx, we're then able to go ahead and 2-shot it with Surf, as it doesn't do a ton of damage with Thrash. And now, for Lapras, I have so much more PP, and my attacks are definitely going to hit a lot harder. Unfortunately, that doesn't change the fact that Lapras is a crit machine, and Confuse Ray really makes it so not every battle is going to be consistent. So, I just do what I can, but unfortunately I do hit myself way too many times, and I don't want to risk this battle, so I go ahead and use another rest to make sure that I can defeat the Lapras when I wake up. I then switch over to Body Slam and get a crit. Finally, Lorelei is done. For the most part, this run has been easy. Lorelei has been a run killer. We're gonna have to claw our way out of this and hopefully end up with a respectable time. Luckily, we have the black belt next, and he should be real easy. In fact, so easy, we probably don't even need to pay attention to this one. So we're at like about 52 minutes. That seems pretty good. I don't think we are too far behind Vaporeon. In fact, we might even be tied with Vaporeon, so that seems to be okay. Let's see how it goes. Oh, looks like we're already beating up on Machamp, and the battle's already over. I don't really know how to expect the Agatha battle to go. We don't really have a super effective move, but we do have a pretty high special and a decent amount of speed. So, let's go ahead and get started. Agatha then starts off with her usual Gengar, and we go ahead and try a Blizzard, which is obviously my highest power move. It does a little bit more than half, which is pretty good. Allows me to two-shot the first Gengar. Then, for Golbat, I go ahead and do a Blizzard because it's super effective. Then, for Haunter, I try out a Blizzard to see if it can one-shot. I got an unusual crit, but you know, that'll do. For Arbok, I then use a Surf, and wow, I was really hoping that Surf would take it out. I mean, Arbok is her weakest Pokemon after all. But I can't really complain, as this is the easiest Agatha battle I've had in quite some time, considering some of the Pokemon that I've been doing. I don't expect much of a challenge from Lance, only the Gyarados seems to be an issue, so let's go ahead and get started. Lance then leads off with his usual Gyarados, and we use a Blizzard. Blizzard does a decent amount of damage, more than I expect, and we go ahead and attempt to take it out with Surf. Unfortunately, that was the wrong play, and now I have to use a rest to get myself out of a bad situation. But it's alright. I mean, Gyarados doesn't really have any moves that threaten us, just slow us down. Unfortunately for me though, I did use 2 Blizzards, so now I am down a few Blizzards. But that's alright, as we get through the next 2 Dragonairs with 2 Blizzards back to back, followed by Aerodactyl with a Surf, after taking a massive Hyper Beam, and then for Dragonite, we don't miss a Blizzard and take it out. Now, with the Elite Four taken care of, let's go ahead and see how Vaporeon's gonna do at the start of the league. Now, you guys already know that I did Vaporeon second, so I got the added benefit of knowing that water types weren't gonna do very well against Lorelei. So I use all my rare candies before the start of the Lorelei battle to make sure that Vaporeon has the best chances. One of the benefits that Vaporeon has that Dewgong doesn't is Acid Armor. And Acid Armor allows us to badge boost, which you can see in the bottom left, as each time we use Acid Armor, our statistics grow rapidly, allowing us to do significantly more damage. Even though Dewgong resists Surf, we can do massive damage with Surf. And Cloyster even gets one-shot. I mean, who gets to one-shot Cloyster with a water move? Apparently Vaporeon can. In fact, look, 3 drops with a Body Slam doesn't even allow us to do a 4th against Jinx, but a Surf knocks it out. As you can see, we were able to achieve a quick victory where Dewgong really struggled. Now, of course, we had the added benefit of the extra 10 levels that Dewgong had to learn, but you know, we'll clean that up in the second run and see just how much it really affected the results. But I can't fault Vaporeon for learning from the Dewgong run. I mean, I instinctively use a rare candy before Champ 6 on any Pokemon that requires badge boosting, because it's just something that I've learned after doing all of these runs. And with that, it looks like we've already beaten the Black Belt. So that was sweet. Let's go ahead and see just how we're gonna do against Agatha. She starts out with her first Gengar, and we go ahead and use a Surf, which then crits and takes it out. Pretty lucky. Golbat, then we use a Blizzard, takes it out on the first shot as well. So, Haunter, we use a Surf, and what do you know, another crit. Arbok is another Surf. Wow, this is going well. And then for a Gengar, it's about a 2-shot as we expected, but quite an easy win. And from here, things should just be gravy, as Lance is gonna be easy. Lance then starts off with his usual Gyarados, and we go right for Blizzard. Then Blizzard does a little bit less than half, forcing him to use a Hyper Potion. This sucks because now we're going to waste off a little too many Blizzards, as one of our Blizzards even misses. Now we're completely out of Blizzards, which honestly, I got a PP up just to make sure that this wouldn't even happen, and it still happened. Luckily, our resisted Surfs are still doing about half damage, so we get through the Dragonairs, not too much of an issue. Then for Aerodactyl, we're not going to outspeed, but we do take it out with a Surf thanks to a miss. Then, for Dragonite, we're going to go ahead and use a Surf, and it does about a 5th, as he gets a critical hit to take me out. Now, it does suck losing in the Elite Four, but luckily it wasn't nearly as bad as the loss at Lorelei for Dewgong, because Dewgong took ages to lose. It had rest, so it wouldn't lose quickly, it would just keep on delaying the inevitable. Luckily, this loss was actually quite quick, and on the next attempt, things go quite a lot more my way, as we can make it through the rest of his team, and even with some blizzards to spare this time. With that completed, it's now time to take a look at just where we stand between Vaporeon and Dewgong. Last time we checked up on the two, Vaporeon was falling quite far behind, but it appears that Vaporeon has now taken the lead. Dewgong is definitely trying its hardest to make a comeback. It even caught up a little bit of time thanks to that reset on Lance. But who knows how this champion battle is going to turn out. But all I know now is, this race was totally worth it. It's a very close battle and it's going to come right down to the end. Dewgong then starts off the champion battle against Pidgeot and starts with a Blizzard. It's an obvious one-shot. Alakazam is next and we go for a Body Slam. It does just a little over half, but he delays the inevitable by using a Recover, followed by the next Body Slam which takes it out. A little worried on how the rest of the battle goes, I'm going to go ahead and take a rest to make sure that I can win this in one shot. Rhydon doesn't pose any sort of threat whatsoever, and after my 2 turns of sleep are done, I take it out with a Surf. This then takes us to Gyarados, which is going to be 2 Blizzards, and it appears that even though it has a level difference, it doesn't matter. Followed by the Arcanine next, who is going to go down to a single Surf, which takes us to the Venusaur. And our Blizzard hits, and we get the victory. We finish the game at level 63 with 55 minutes real time, 325 game time, and 4 resets. The first try champion battle is going to leave Vaporeon with very little room for error, as it's probably also going to have to get a first try victory in order to stand a chance against our fantastic Sea Lion. So let's go ahead and pop over to Vaporeon to see just how it's going to do. Champ is then going to go ahead and start out with his Pidgeot, and we go ahead and use a Blizzard and take it out in one hit. Followed by Alakazam next, and he uses an unfortunate Reflect, but we get a very lucky critical hit to bypass all of the Reflect. Then for Rhydon, we go ahead and take it down with a Surf. Gyarados is next, and we're going to go ahead and use a Blizzard. We get a very lucky critical hit. He uses a Hyper Beam, and because he's going to have a recharge turn, I go ahead and set up with 1 Acid Armor before then taking it down with the next Surf. This then brings us to Arcanine, and because Arcanine's not really a threat in any sort of way, I go ahead and set up the last 2 Acid Armors before then taking it down with a Surf. This then takes us to Venusaur, and we're going to go ahead and outspeed and take it out with a Blizzard. Well, it looks like Vaporeon first tried the champion as well. We finished the game at level 64 with 54 minutes real time, 332 game time, and 3 resets. Let's go ahead and take a look at our splits chart to see how the run progressed. It appears that throughout the run, Dewgong was able to take a sizable lead thanks to its ice typing and better moveset. However, as it got to Lorelei, Vaporeon was then able to take a lead because it had the advantage of going second and knowing that I was going to be able to do a lot more damage to her water and ice types. So Vaporeon was able to get a slight advantage. But don't worry, I wouldn't be a very good challenge runner if I only finished at 1 run. So we're obviously going to play another run, and now I'm going to know where all the Pokemon's strengths and weaknesses are, and how I can hopefully pivot my strategies during the run to take advantage of those strengths and minimize the weaknesses. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that's going to go. But before then, it's about time for my creator's shoutout. Today's creator shoutout is Hidden Jim. He was actually the one who suggested that I turn my regular Dewgong video into a versus video. He's actually had some recent success with his own versus videos, and here's a clip from his most recent video of some extremely fortunate luck he got against Red.
Let's give it one more try before going to grind. First up for Red is Pikachu. I don't know why, but I liked using Return on Bones, so why not try Return on Pikachu? And it goes for Quick Attack. This might be our chance. I think it's only a coincidence, but I don't care. We knock out the Pikachu and move on to Venusaur. Earthquake from Boneless does over half, taking the Venusaur orange health. It uses Sunny Day, so that will cut down on any chances Blastoise may have with Surf. We knock it out with an Earthquake. Okay, Blastoise is next, and Earthquake does similar damage. We don't want Blizzard to hit, and it misses. Yes! Earthquake downs Blastoise. Espeon is up after Blastoise, and it uses Reflect, outspeeding us. However, Earthquake does plenty of damage, taking it to a critical half health, just what we need. Psychic hits are decent damage, but more importantly, our Earthquake is enough, and we get to face Snorlax now.
We're almost 40 minutes into this video, so I'm going to go ahead and speed it up tremendously, only going over the battles that actually matter. I decide to stay on point with the dog names and name them both Good Boy, but different versions of Good Boy. The opening champ battle doesn't really change in any way. They're both very easy. Vaporeon's a bit slower because we only have Water Gun. The Brock battles are still tremendously easy as they're just one-shots each. Misty, things change a bit because we have different strategies for both Pokemon. Now, for Vaporeon, we're going to go ahead and use 2 Sand attacks to start. And for Dewgong, we're going to use 2 Growls to start. Both Pokemon are at the same level going into this battle because I add in some extra battles to make the runs a little bit more similar. But as you can see with this battle, things are a little bit better for Dewgong because Dewgong starts with Headbutt, and we were able to finish a lot earlier than we are able to finish with Vaporeon. But the important thing to note is that neither of them lose, so neither of them are going to lose a lot of time here in this battle. Even though it takes a long time for Vaporeon, it still gets the job done. Then, for Champ 2, the battles go very similar, only one thing is a little bit different. For the Vaporeon battle, Pidgeotto starts out with a Sand attack, which obviously causes things to go very awry. Interestingly enough, you can see in real time just how much missing does affect your time, as Dewgong is already done with the battle. In fact, it's already moving on to the Nugget Bridge, and we're still battling Champ. And now, things get even worse, as Bulbasaur is then able to seed Vaporeon. Luckily, Vaporeon's able to string enough attacks together to eventually get the win. And now you're able to see just how consistent it is for Dewgong versus Vaporeon, which eventually struggles because it just doesn't have a good typing matchup against Bulbasaur for quite some time. But we do unlock a new move at the SSN, and that allows us to get through the rest of Champ 3 no problem, as now we have Body Slam instead of using Bubble Beam, which will allow us to get through Ivysaur in 2 hits, and Ivysaur won't do much with that Vine Whip anyways. Followed by one of the other hurdles of the run. We have a very big weakness to electric types on both of our competitors. And interestingly enough, you get to see here how pacing really does matter in this run. A move choice, no matter how insignificant, could cost a few seconds, and Dewgong here used Headbutt instead of Body Slam, and that didn't take out the Voltorb, costing it a few precious seconds. Then, as we arrive in Celadon City, our paths diverge for the first time, as Vaporeon needs to obtain Ice Beam from the Mart, whereas Dewgong already has Aurora Beam and can face Erica immediately. So, while I'm there, I'm able to pick up 3 Calcium for Vaporeon and 5 Carbos for Dewgong. Personally, I don't know why I picked all the Carbos for Dewgong. I didn't really have troubles with any Pokemon outspeeding me, but, you know, you live and you learn. This then takes us to Champ 4, where neither of the teams really have a difficulty at all with this team whatsoever. I mean, for the most part they're one-shot sweeps except for Gyarados, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. This then takes us to Koga, where Vaporeon relies on Surf, and Dewgong relies on Ice Beam. Both of them being the primary stab moves of each Pokemon, and for the most part they're keeping the same pace. Unfortunately for Vaporeon, it levels up and attempts to learn a move, which definitely slows its time down, but not by much, but Vaporeon does learn a lot more moves than Dewgong does. With that taken care of, let's go ahead and take a look at our splits. Well, for the most part, they actually seem the same as the first run. As you can see, Vaporeon takes the early lead because it doesn't battle Rival 1A, then Dewgong takes the lead because it has the better move selection, and it continues the lead. And then, by the time we go ahead and get over to Koga, we've shortened the lead just a wee bit because we've gotten Ice Beam, and Ice Beam allows us to have the same moveset as Dewgong. In fact, the race is so close, it might go down to who gets the first reset might lose it. Of course, that reset is not going to come in the form of Blaine, as Blaine is just going to be an easy serve for both of our competitors. Both of them have stab moves, Blaine's Pokemon are just terrible, not to mention, he uses super potions whenever possible, but I don't think any of his Pokemon really get a shot in. It looks like Vaporeon got hit once. Champ 5 then follows, but our moveset's now been upgraded, so we have Blizzard. So, the rest of his team really isn't going to stand much of a chance. Even Gyarados is probably still going to end up being a 2-shot. While Vaporeon is struggling with Gyarados, Dewgong is then learning its final move in Rest. I accidentally didn't learn it the first time, so things got slowed down a bit. But we're back on track, we're taking down the rest of Champ's team, no problems. It's been very surprising, Venusaur hasn't really been much of a factor in this run at all. Next battle is going to be Erica, and we have pretty strong defensive moves in Body Slam. As you can see, Kadabra survives the first Body Slam, partially due to being a lower level and partially due to actually having a lower attack stat than Dewgong. But it doesn't really matter, as the rest of the battle seems pretty easy. Dewgong is able to take out the early lead though, thanks to its slightly higher attack stat. This then brings us to Giovanni, and I'm not even sure why I bother showing this fight. Honestly, it's actually quite cool seeing how in sync it is. I mean, both of the Pokemon just one-shot all of them, but like, you get to see them in almost unison. It's actually very cool. Now, after this battle, I then head over to the Celadon Mart and pick up 1 Carbos and 4 Calcium for Dewgong. This then takes us to Champ 6, where both Pokemon in unison take down Pidgeot with a Blizzard, followed by the Rhyhorn with a Surf. Then things deviate a little bit on Vaporeon as I hit Gyarados with the first Blizzard. It unfortunately doesn't do a whole lot, but thanks to that Leer and an Acid Arbor, the second Blizzard is able to take it out in one hit. This then allowed Dewgong to pull just a little bit ahead, but it's not that big of a deal. I just want to point out that these are the kind of changes that allow Dewgong to pull just a little bit ahead every time we do one of these big battles, because Vaporeon then sets up sometimes where Dewgong can just get the one shot. Now, as we're arriving to the Elite Four, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the standings once again just to see where we are. Well, last time we left off, we were at Koga, which is Gym 5. From there, things go pretty much the same. As you can see, no one really gives or takes an inch very much until we get to Champ 6. See, this is where I told you we picked up all those extra vitamins. Those vitamins ended up costing us 50 seconds. Now let's go ahead and hope that those vitamins will make all the difference in the Elite Four. Maybe, just maybe, Vaporeon might get a reset that Dewgong doesn't, and that'll make all the difference. Also, I'm going to go back to single Pokemon runs, so that way you're able to obtain the entire experience. Starting with Lorelei, and she starts off with Dewgong, and we made sure to rare candy as much as we could this time, knowing from the first run that it matters a lot. Now, unfortunately, we've been hit by 2 Growls at this point, so our body slams have become a little bit on the useless side. So, I go ahead and switch over to Surf. I think I'm able to take out Slowbro, but unfortunately, Body Slam has been so weak that I have to switch back to Surf, but that's alright. Now we're gonna make it to Jinx, and Surf almost one-shots it. We get paralyzed, but then the next Surf finishes it off, taking us to Lapras. Unfortunately for me, Lapras is not going too well. I hit myself a few times. For some reason, I was using Body Slam to hopefully paralyze Lapras, I guess. But regardless, we then switch over to Surf and get the KO. I do, however, forget to use a full restore. I did remember the elixir, but now we're gonna have to have the black belt use bad moves or just don't hit us. And because we're paralyzed, we're gonna go second every single turn. Looks like we're getting pretty lucky getting some bad move choices here. And we even make it to Machamp. But I mean, a Surf doesn't finish it off and Machamp takes us out. On top of the time loss, it's just embarrassing. On the next attempt, I make sure to fully heal, make sure I have all the PP. And the next attempt goes very well, as he doesn't really stand much of a chance at all. Setting that aside, Agatha is next, and we're gonna go ahead and start off with a Blizzard. Does a little bit more than half, but not anywhere near the amount of damage that I was hoping. So I go ahead and switch over to a Surf. Then for Golbat, I go ahead and use a Blizzard because it's part flying type. Then for Haunter, do not one-shot it with a Blizzard, which is a bit unfortunate. Arbok, again, go for Blizzard because it's my strongest move and it takes it out. And then I freeze the Gengar, which is pretty lucky. Alright, for Lance, the only real problem here is the Gyarados. Go ahead and use a Blizzard, does more than half, which is fantastic. For some reason, I get over my skis and I use a Surf, but that's alright, 2 more Blizzards do the trick. Now, Dragonair should be real simple. For some reason, 90% accuracy missed 4 times in a row, so I have to use a Rest, which costs a lot of time. But you know what? Whatever, it happens. Go ahead and use a Surf because that's 100% accurate, and a Body Slam. Very odd. Continue to not trust Blizzard as I go ahead and use more Body Slams, followed by the Aerodactyl, which should be an easy KO with Surf. Don't mind me just sitting here at 1 HP, taking a risk on Blizzard, and getting the victory. With the Elite Four taken care of, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Vaporeon to see how it will do across the league. Now for Vaporeon, we're going to go ahead and set up with a few Acid Armors to make sure that my Surf and Blizzard do maximum amount of damage. Unfortunately, it's not enough to two-shot the Dewgong, but that's alright. We'll go ahead and get through Dewgong pretty quickly. Then for Cloyster, we're going to go ahead and use some more Surf. Everything appears to be a two-shot. Surf, again, Slowbro does quite well. Unfortunately, Amnesia brings it to 3-hit range, and then a Super Potion makes it a 4, but that's still fine. Jinx, don't expect a one-shot. I get the one-shot. Then for Lapras, looks to be about a 3-shot. And it is. Once again, I decide not to heal and go straight into the Black Belt. He starts off with Onix, and we use a Surf. Takes it out. Hitmonchan, another Surf. Takes it out. Hitmonlee, Surf. Then Onix, Surf. Can we make it a one-shot sweep across the board? No, we can't, but that's alright. We'll take it out anyways. I'm not anticipating much of a threat from Agatha as long as she doesn't put me to sleep. She starts off with a Switch, which is pretty good for me. I already get the Golbat out of the way. Then for Gengar, 2-shot range, pretty nice. Then for Haunter, probably should have considered using Blizzard, but you know, Surf was our best move. Arbok is Arbok. Gengar, hopefully a 2-shot. And it looks to be about a 2-shot, and it is. I'm not expecting much of a challenge here from Lance, as long as we can get past this Gyarados. Blizzard does about a 1/3, which is a bit unfortunate, but you know, Hyper Beam really just didn't do very much. So I go ahead and Acid Armor. I was hoping that the badge boost from Acid Armor would get me over the hump to do a 2-shot. It doesn't, but that's alright. We get through Dragonair with a Blizzard. Thankfully it doesn't miss, followed by the next one, which doesn't miss. Take out the Aerodactyl with a Surf. We're down pretty low for the Dragonite, but you know, it's nothing we can't handle. It's time once again to take a look at the splits, as we are before the champion. Surprisingly, after Lorelei, we were at a dead tie. Unfortunately, that reset on the Black Belt really did cost us a bunch of time, and it looks like we haven't gotten any of that time back. Alright, it's champion time for Dewgong, and we cannot afford to lose at all during this match. It looks like we'll take out the Pidgeot just fine. Things go really well for Alakazam as we paralyze it. Take a bit of damage. Ooh, but we do take a special drop. That is unfortunate. That is definitely going to affect just how bad the Venusaur's going to go. Luckily, we have 8 Blizzards. So, if things go a little awry here on Gyarados, we still have enough Blizzards to go through Venusaur. But unfortunately, we take quite a bit more damage than we were hoping. And we take so much damage we have to use Rest. Now we're also going down a little bit on Blizzards. 3 Blizzards should be enough. Arcanine doesn't get one shot thanks to our special drop. Alright, Venusaur and Blizzard. It doesn't one shot, but it's just a Mega Drain. Alright, we can deal with a Mega Drain. Perfect. We got the victory. He didn't use Razor Leaf. Let's go ahead and see how Vaporeon's gonna do. Alright, champion starts out with the Pidgeot. We're gonna go ahead and use a Blizzard. No problem. Gonna level up. Now for Alakazam, gonna go ahead and use a Body Slam. It does use a Reflect, which is a bit unfortunate. I guess something's got to happen for both these battles to make them interesting. We're not getting a crit, which is pretty interesting as well. We do end up getting a crit, so things look pretty straightforward from here. Gonna use our Acid Armors on Rhydon to make sure that we can survive any hit that gets thrown at us. I even get an extra Acid Armor in there thanks to a Leer. Our stats are looking pretty sweet. And for Gyarados, get a crit, and he powers us up even further. Arcanine, we're gonna go ahead and take it out with a Surf. We then level up, so actually all of our special boosts are gone. Blizzard then doesn't KO. Razor Leaf does massive damage. Blizzard misses, Mega Drain doesn't KO, and we finish it off. Well, that does it, everybody. We finished the game with both Dewgong and Vaporeon. They both got very respectable times, both S-tier times. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these splits. I think you've already seen this chart enough. We've already compared them to each other, but let's go ahead and compare them to themselves. As you can see from these two sets of splits, the only real noticeable change here is the minus 234 there in Gym 6 of Dewgong. This is actually because we changed our routing. We actually went to Blaine instead of going to Silphco and then doing Sabrina, which we did in our first run. Then, of course, in Lorelei we saved 5 minutes by using our rare candies at the beginning. As far as Vaporeon is concerned, you can just see there's just growth across the entire board. I just played the game better. I was more confident in my move choices. I knew exactly when to use moves, when not to run out of moves. Everything was just smoother. The only thing that Vaporeon doesn't have going for it is its early moveset. Other than that, Dewgong is just, well, okay. As far as the rankings are concerned, I actually had to make an addendum here to the rankings. As you guys already know, I don't have any D or F Pokemon here on the rankings, so I decided that since I do a lot of good Pokemon here on the channel, and that's, because I like playing good Pokemon, and I'm sure you guys like playing good Pokemon too, I decided to move the F tier to a quote-unquote second page, and then make a second S tier section, so that way I could fit all of the Pokemon. As far as the rankings are concerned for the two competitors today, the competitors were both almost identical, Vaporeon just getting a slight edge. Now, one thing that they did have is they did have some struggles at Misty, Champ 2, Surge, and Lorelei, which is more than I can say for Vileplume. So they fit right behind Vileplume and just ahead of Lapras. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do another versus video next. It'll be the pairing of Kadabra and Mr. Mime. Of all the psychic types, this seemed like the pair that would finish the closest. If you'd like a Pokemon to be done, make sure to comment on this or any of my other videos. I am still keeping track of all suggestions and will get back to them soon. If you have any suggestions for a challenge, way to improve my strategy, maybe even a way to improve the quality of my videos, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. My channel is always improving, and every video I plan to bring you even better content. Keep my suggestions coming, and I look forward to bringing you another video. Now it's PokeRap time.